Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Rather, let's slow it down. How are you all? This is Tea Time History Chat Live with me, Philippa Lacey Brule. I'm streaming live on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And today, I want to tell you all about my top secret visit to London last week. If you were here with me last week, I told you that I was heading down to London for a visit to somewhere top secret. So I'll tell you all about that. You would have seen a little bit if you're following me on Instagram anyway. And if you're in my Patreon, you've obviously seen some behind the scenes extra photos as well. Let's see if my voice holds out. I also want to tell you today, I want to tell you a little bit more, just very, very quickly about book club. Happy Thursday, Catherine Parr Society. Yeah, isn't it Wednesday? It's Wednesday. Did I say Thursday? Well, anyway, sorry about that. Just ripped a day. Well, no, I'll give you a day back. I also want to let you know that the schedule for the Tudors Online History Festival is now announced. So I'll just do that at the end so that if that's not of interest, you don't have to hang around for it. But if you do want to know about it, then yeah, I'll be covering that as well. So I can see lots of people joining on Instagram. Hi, everyone who's joining on YouTube and Facebook as well. Jenna, Jonathan, Lisa, Manya, and Naga. And on Instagram, it flies up so quickly, but thank you very much. Lottie Rose, thank you so much for the badge. You are such a sweetie. So if you want to support me, and I really am grateful because it helps me go out and do the visits that I do, and buy the equipment I need to do it. There's a few ways of doing it. Lottie Rose, the beautiful Lottie Rose, has bought me a badge on Instagram. You can do stars on Facebook, super chats on YouTube, and something other on YouTube. And this is how I love you to support me, you can join my Patreon. It's patreon.com/British history. It's £5 a month, and I give you lots back, including membership of the book club, which I wanted to talk a little bit about later because it's become to my attention that some book clubs are affiliated, and I just wanted to assure everyone that I'm not affiliated. In fact, no, let's do this now. The books that I recommend are literally books that I have read, normally I've read them and I know they're good books. I don't recommend them for any other reason. So I'm not getting kickbacks. I'm not, sometimes if I get a book for free, I will tell you. But I think I mentioned this on the book review week, when I'm suggesting something that you're spending $20-30 pounds on, I'm not going to suggest it unless I think you're going to get something out of it. So I just wanted to assure you the book club is not affiliated, and any book recommendations I give to you is because I've read the book and I think you will enjoy it, and I normally tell you why so that you can choose for yourself. Deborah, thank you so much for the badges as well on Instagram. That is so lovely of you. I can see Laurie there, Lottie Rose, Deborah, Amy, Michelle, Miko Abel. Sorry, handles on Instagram. They always get me. So last week when I was here, I was telling you that I was going out and about the day after. There's two reasons why I don't say where I'm going. Well, last week there was. One, because it plays on where I was going, that I said it was top secret, and I'll explain that in a moment. And two, because, it's a bit daft to tell everyone where you're going to be. I always think, single female traveler and all that. So last week, though, last Thursday, I headed down to London, and it was a private tour I was getting of the Cabinet War Rooms, or otherwise known as Churchill's War Rooms, and they sit underneath the Treasury. So if you are lucky enough to come to Whitehall, Westminster Whitehall, you'll know that the street is called Whitehall now, and you're history buffs like me, so you'll know that Banqueting House is halfway up, but you're surrounded by massive buildings. Downing Street is in the middle. You have the House of Parliament behind you, and it is underneath one of those buildings, underneath the Treasury. Now it's the Treasury, that the Cabinet War Rooms were set up. and I was invited to go along. It's funny because I was actually intending to go really soon anyway. It's somewhere that I went years ago and wanted to go back to, because it's one of these places that is truly a time capsule. And it really, even if you're not into the World War II period, it's worth going to because it was a shut the door, turn the lights off and leave place, which makes it incredibly atmospheric. The smells are sort of still there. I got to go behind the glass. So if you've ever been, then you will know that the way they've set up it for me as a museum is by sort of putting big windows into where there was walls, and so you can see into the rooms where they met, the map room, which I'll talk about in a bit more detail, Churchill's bedroom that he used when he was there. I actually got to go into those spaces, which, so when I say about the smells as well, that was even more sort of noticeable when you went actually literally behind the glass and into the rooms and got right up close to things like the maps. You saw every pinprick that, of every pin that's ever been put into those maps, and those maps were used to follow troop movements, convoy movements on sea and on land, throughout the whole war effort. When you've got someone in your family, as I'm sure most of us have, who were involved in that conflict, then you know that there's pinpricks on that map that represented where they were at one time, which is really, I don't know what's the word for that. It's quite overwhelming, actually. So the location of it is interesting. Now, I've mentioned that it's near to Westminster, so it's near to the House of Parliament, it's near to Downing Street. As far as I understand it, it shouldn't have sort of been the permanent place, but they were looking for somewhere that the War Cabinet could meet fairly quickly and safely. What's interesting, one of the interesting things about it is that it's not actually, or it was deemed maybe after the fact, not really bomb-proof. So the War Cabinet, it was set up just before the war officially started, and the War Cabinet would meet down there, and it's like a big basement cellar with corridors, sort of slim corridors with lots of doors off to lots of different rooms. There would have been guards everywhere. If any of you've watched Darkest Hour, then you see how they would have entered the Cabinet War Rooms. The Cabinet War Rooms, the war room, sort of the meeting room itself, is one room, and there's lots of other rooms. There was 500 staff working down there during the war, right through from sort of the top brass are in there, because Churchill would want to meet with the heads of the army, the navy and the air force together. They would have their clerks, there would be the typing pool, there would be the cooks down there, there would be all sorts. Now it's sort of lit up with nice, yes, Amy, The Darkest Hour, it's a brilliant film. I watched it the night after the night after that, but anyway, that I came back, I was like, I must watch the Darkest Hour again. It's a great film if anyone wants to watch a film. I love films based on sort of real events. Oh, Manya's catching up. Well, Manya, I must say, welcome to my Patreon. You, along with Devra, who's watching on Instagram, you have both joined Patreon this week. So thank you so much. I love it. I love it when people join our Patreon, because it's such a lovely group, and we will be meeting actually in the book club that we have in there. Gives us chance to actually meet in sort of virtual person as well, which is fabulous. Oh, Amanda's in Chile. Welcome. So Yeah. Right. So yes. So over 500 people would be working down in these war rooms. So they weren't purpose built. This was the this was the treasury. Sorry, the basement of the building, which has become the treasury. I can't remember what it was during the war. And so, and it's actually two levels. You can't go into the level below, but that's where people would sleep. And there's no running water. It's a basement. It's not purpose built, so there's no running water. You have to remember as well, of course. I mean, Britain have only just got air conditioning in what, the last 10 years maybe, and not everywhere. I think it was American chains. Like when we first got them, McDonald's has been here for a while, but Costa, a place like that where it's like, oh, air conditioning exists in the UK. So anyway, so you can imagine they're underground, there's no air conditioning, everyone's smoking. And it's dark. There was electricity, but it would have been dull. And they started to use the war rooms fairly quickly because there was an air bombardment on London, and this is where the War Cabinet had to retreat to to meet. Except it wasn't bomb-proof. So again, probably because I mean, it wasn't. It was chosen, I think, out of because it was a place that was suitable, but it wasn't 100% suitable. I think there might have been plans to build one somewhere else, but in the end, it was used throughout the war. And Churchill at one point ordered for a sort of slab of concrete to be poured above the basement, so probably sort of street level, because you're actually only just below street level. If you go into the treasury, you actually go up some steps as far as I understand it. So then that's where the staff who were all working there, that is the way they would go in. The entrance which you use if you go now as a tourist, like I was going, then that didn't exist. So the impression that people had was that they were going down multiple stories and would be deep underground, but in fact they were pretty much just below street level. So incredibly, had the building above taken a direct hit, or the street above taken a direct hit, then the integrity of the whole sort of warren underground might have uh, been in jeopardy, which is quite incredible when you think who was under there. Churchill didn't like staying there. In fact, Churchill is known to have, if there were air raids on London, rather than get into the sort of bunker, he would like to go up onto the rooftop and watch. So yeah, certainly not a fearful man. And so there is a bedroom down in the war rooms, which was there for his use, should he be kept there. The bunk beds and sort of provisions for sleeping there for everyone who worked there were there in case they couldn't leave. So they weren't sort of expected to sleep there if they could go home, but if there was a raid on, then they might have to stay underground. They use chemical toilets. Like I said, there's no running water. So it was pretty grim. It was pretty grim under there. Not now, they've got nice atmospheric lighting. And it's but you get sort of you think everyone down there was smoking, and there was some fans that were to circulate the air. Like I said, no air conditioning, but that sort of smell, it's not unpleasant. It sounds like it'd be unpleasant. It's not unpleasant. It when you walk in the room, like I said, because you're walking actually behind the glass, I was, and lucky me, and I got in there. It is like you're going back in time, which is what we all want, isn't it? When we go to these places, it's to actually be transported back. All of the things in there are original. Might not be in exactly the same place, down to, oh, well, there's all sorts, except for maybe Churchill's cigars. They're not his exact ones. They were very valuable. You're not going to leave those around. Oh, that's the other thing. If you think about it, they're smoking all the time. And there's paper everywhere. They're dealing with paper, and they're on phones, which our kids wouldn't even know how to use these days. That's how they do it. And so in the actual war room, cabinet war rooms. This is the room in which the cabinet war cabinet actually met. Is Churchill's chair, and I don't know how the impression that sort of has come to you of Churchill, but and actually the Darkest Hour does this very well, because there can be this impression that he's just sort of a very statesmanlike, very self-assured. Now, he knew what he thought needed to happen, of course, but there were signs of the stress that he was under. So on his chair, this is incredible. On his chair, he wore a signet ring. I think it was on his left hand. And so in the arms, on the end of the arms of the chair, one has a groove sort of going front to back, and one sort of where the varnish has been rubbed off, and the other side has actually got a groove into it. Now, excuse me, because I can't remember which way round, whether it was left or right, which sort of goes side to side where he had the signet rings. Whichever hand he has his signet ring on, that's the side. So he must have sat in that chair. Well, it tells you a few things. He sat in that chair for a cumulative long period of time in order to make those marks on the chair, and that he's sitting there, fidgeting, thinking, the equivalent of doodling. I don't know, but he's clearly. I mean, it'd be a bit odd if he was doing it at the same time. I was like, "There's no way. How would you?" It's a bit like tapping your head and rubbing your stomach, because one of the grooves, one of the marks goes front to back, and the other one goes side to side. But yeah, so physically his chair is there. You can see the marks made by Churchill during the cabinet meetings. You can see on the wall. He was a huge fan of maps. Obviously, there's a map room, which I'll speak about in a moment. But Churchill himself was a huge fan of maps, and he had maps in his bedroom, in this room. This room was allocated as his bedroom. He slept in it overnight a handful of times, but he was a big fan of the power nap. So he didn't sleep maybe particularly well at night time, but he was a fan of the power nap, and he would use this room for power napping. Anyway, but you wonder as well how much he got to how much he napped when he's got things like, he clearly didn't want to go in there for rest. He's got maps on the wall which had locations of certain bases over the country, and there's the handwritten key on one of the pillars. So when Churchill found out that it wasn't particularly bomb-proof in this set of rooms, I say that it's big. It's a big site. That he had this concrete block, plinth, whatever, put in, and also sort of lots of a wooden structure basically underneath as well, and pinned to one of those is this key to his map. Jenna says, I know what you mean about the feeling you get. I've been inside a World War II aircraft carrier. It's an unexplainable feeling while you're walking through it. Made me think of my great grandfather, who was in the US Navy serving in the Pacific. So the thought that so let's go on to the map room then. Oh no, sorry, one more thing about Churchill's bedroom before I move on. His addresses to the nation. So some of them came from that bedroom in the war rooms, and there's 2 BBC mics still there, the ones he used, and it's where he sat to one of the addresses he definitely gave from there was the announcement of that Pearl Harbor had been attacked and America was coming into the war. He did that from that room, and I stood there where he was, where he sat and did it. Laurie says, sounds so amazing. After seeing lots of his belongings and paintings at Chartwell, I'm definitely more intrigued by these items. I mean, Chartwell is a wonderful place to go to as well. It's really homely, actually, and that's one thing I think that comes across in The Darkest Hour. You know, his marriage to Clemmy and his children. You know, the relationship they had. I think it's always very unfair that people say that his paintings aren't very good. I mean, he's painting like for a hobby, like we would do. I don't know. We would go and play tennis or swim or I don't know, whatever. And if someone said, "Oh, they weren't very good at it," well, yeah. I don't think that was his purpose, was to be a good artist. Well, maybe he wanted to be a good artist and he liked practicing, but I don't think that was his main aim with his paintings. There was no paintings down in the war rooms. He clearly didn't have time for that while he was down there. So the map room itself, his bedroom actually was right next door to the map room. He hated noise, by the way, which I can understand. While you're trying to think, I mean, you can imagine he's thinking all the time. There must be no let up whatsoever. So the noise of the typewriters he didn't like. So they had special typewriters that were quieter. He nicknamed the hole punches that they used a clop. I think it was a clop, but named after the so he sort of named it onomatopoeically. And the telephone. So if you might have seen a picture of the I was going to put pictures up, sorry, but they wouldn't upload quick enough. Of the bank of telephones that are in the map room, and this is where the commanders would sort of work from, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army, and they have these phones where they can dial out, but also they were getting information in. They didn't ring; they had lights on them. It would have been crazy, I think, if they'd have all rang. So they had lights on them, so that was how you would become aware that there was somebody ringing in. And they had weather reports. They had weather reports of sort of strategic sites and whatever. But down in the corridor was a sign that said what the weather was like above. There would have been no way you would know. In fact, while we were down there, you really couldn't hear anything. You could occasionally hear the tube going by. And I'm not even sure what line that would be and whether that line would have been there in the war. Might have been. But anyway, that was the only thing we could actually hear when we were down there. It had a bank of generators, so the power was generated down there. That's actually where we first met when we went down there and we were greeted. But yeah, in the map room, so you've got the bank of telephones, you've got everyone. I can't remember the man's name. So there was. Oh no, I'm not going to guess his name. Anyway, this man was working there. Now the rations, a week's worth of sugar was about 3 cubes. So what you think of as a cube of sugar in an envelope. So the Churchill War Rooms became I think they must sort of known that they needed to keep it for sort of prosperity. And when it was actually being turned into the museum, so things were sort of being looked through, they found an envelope, and in this envelope, I think it was written on the outside so they knew whose it was, and it was in his drawer. It was 3 cubes of sugar. So this is this man's no, I'm not gonna guess. This was this man's weekly ration of sugar, and there were scrapes in one of and they're out now. Sorry, what I should say is they're out. So there's a sort of mannequin that's supposed to be him, and in the museum part of the setup, there's pictures of this man, and there's sort of the scraped bits off the sugar cube. as if maybe you take a bit for your tea. Um, and he's clearly keeping it, making it last, and then he's put it in the envelope and it's back in his drawer and he's left and forgotten about it. And so there is his last ration of sugar. Um, that he had down there with him anyway, sat in the drawer. So that's now out on the side. So if you do go and you see the map room, bank of telephones, and there's a mannequin on the right hand side, in front of him to his left on the desk is a blue envelope, the original envelope, and the 3 sugar cubes that he had in that he left behind. But we got to go we got to get right up close to the maps on the wall. And as I said, for anyone who's joined since I began, the maps in the map room at the Churchill War Rooms it's literally covered in pinpricks. And I will put photos, and I've done a couple of things about it since I've been back, but I'll put some more on, especially for patrons. Each one of those pinpricks was tracking a convoy movement. So they go through the sea. I think they go through sea and land. I'm pretty sure with that. So if you do have a relative who was in the war, and my granddad certainly was, then there's pinpricks on there that would represented where they were, which is incredibly poignant, isn't it? And there's a series of bedrooms. Clemmy, Churchill's wife, had her own bedroom there. Looks different to the other. Well, the way it's furnished is different. There was a kitchen, but all these rooms were just, it was like shut up and gone. Can you imagine somewhere that's the hive of activity? I think Bletchley Park was very like this. I was very lucky. And it's before I was doing everything that I do now, but I did absorb myself. I managed to get to Bletchley Park when it was still Enthusiast Run. Now it's fantastic that Bletchley Park, home of the Codebreakers, has a someone just said hi mom, which is really throwing me. That it had lottery fund. I think it was lottery funding, and it's state of the art now. You can learn about all sorts of stuff, but when it was Enthusiast Run, it was another kind of shut the lights off, lock the door, and leave type place. So again, another sort of time capsule. But the war rooms, the things in there, the typewriters, the maps, even down to the signs. So it's always fair and sunny, according to the sign in the corridor, to tell the people down there what it was like, what the weather was like above. The final weather map is dated, the final date that the war rooms were used, because of course it wasn't then updated after that. So it was an incredible visit. I could not recommend more that you if you're in London and you're in the Westminster area, that you go and look. I would give yourself about an hour and a half to 2 hours, depending on how much you like to sort of be still in one place, maybe. But there is a museum as well as part of it. And there's a good gift shop, which I didn't get to do because it was closed. So that was one downside. But I will be recording a podcast with the curator there, a lady called Kate, and I will be doing that. I will be recording a podcast with her. So patrons, if you have any questions about the Cabinet War Rooms, about Churchill's War Rooms, then I will be asking for questions to put to Kate, the curator there. If you're not a Patreon and you'd like to put in questions, then please just join Patreon. It's patreon.com/British history. And that's one of the perks that you get regularly is to ask questions of historians or people that I am going to be interviewing. So I'm really looking forward to that and getting into some of the stories, more stories about what happened down there. I found it really incredible that it wasn't bomb-proof. I just always assumed that it was bomb-proof. How funny that it wasn't. Funny in a like weird kind of way. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that you go there. And if you have any questions about the place you want me to put to the curator, then please look out in my Patreon for that post. I think now you can follow me on Patreon without joining, so you can see what I post. And then if you decided that you want to join because you want to see what's actually within the post, so I think you just sort of see a headline and a summary, then you can. So check me out anyway. Patreon, patreon.com/British history. Let me take a sip of my drink. Before I move on, let me tell you, tonight we have History After Dark. And I noticed someone, Anaga, was it, you said that earlier, so before I came on, that it is the 608th anniversary of Henry V's victory at Agincourt today. So I haven't talked about that. I apologise. Partly because I have been doing lots and lots of research ready for tonight's History After Dark. When we do History After Dark, we're currently in the Deceased Gits series, and this is our penultimate Git. So we only have 2 left, tonight and next week. And tonight it's Richard, Duke of York. So in order to do 10 minutes, so each of me and the girls, so we do it with Katrina Marchant and Catherine Ibbotson, formerly known as Brooks. When we do it, we have sort of about 10 minutes each. So tonight I am covering Richard, Duke of York, rebel or patriot. And in order to do your 10 minutes, in order to do a 10 minutes that hopefully is succinct and makes sense, I have currently done about 10 hours of research. So I apologize that I'm not covering Agincourt today. There's only so much I can kind of hold in this brain, but it just made me think, because of course part of the reason, a big massive part of the reason that Richard, Duke of York, ever goes near to the throne, and obviously I'll be talking about this in more detail and more succinctly, both of those things, on History After Dark tonight, which I'd love you to join us, is that Henry V's son, Henry VI, is not anything like his father. And it must have been, whilst the court are watching the baby Henry VI grow up, hoping that, okay, we've got a baby on the throne, but we've just got his minority to get through, and then he's Henry V's son. He's our warrior king's son. He's going to definitely be growing up and be, a fantastic leader like his father. And it does not happen at all. Even sort of before his bouts of he sort of goes into like a living awake coma sort of thing. But even before that, he was always more bookish. He was always more religious. He was he never swore. he wanted just everyone to get along, which is all lovely, but not exactly what's required of a king in at that time. So anyway, so that's how Richard of York, sort of in a very, very simplified version, kind of becomes why that becomes an issue, and why Richard of York would have any sort of argument with the crown at all. So Manya says, did anyone else watch a few videos on the descendants of Henry III to figure out how Richard of York had a claim? Because it gets confusing. It does. And actually Kat Dr. Cat will be covering Richard of York's claim tonight on History After Dark. So do join us. We're live at 8:15 tonight UK time. History.after.dark on Instagram. History After Dark on YouTube. Cat will be covering how Richard of York has a claim to the throne. It is complicated. But you also, I think it's also worth remembering that it's complicated also by the fact that there isn't the idea of who comes after who, what's the rightful line of succession, was something that was sort of hammered out over centuries, and it only works until it doesn't work. It's going to be the eldest son of the king, all right, and then that son dies and he leaves a child, but there's brothers, so they're sons of the previous king who died, so why not we go to them? Or in the case of the Tudors, there's no sons, we have no boys to take the throne. I think we can get ourselves tied in knots as well as to who the rightful king is. And of course, what we're doing there is repeating what those in power and were arguing that they had a right to the throne, what they were arguing. But really, it's if you think about it, we're all human beings, and therefore it's a made-up system, because there's nothing actually in nature that says who should be in charge. Certainly, when it comes to bloodlines and inheritance just within a family for a position of power and influence. So it will be an interesting discussion tonight. I'm hoping to put forward a bit of a case as to why Richard could be seen more as a patriot than a rebel, but we'll see how I go with that. And yes, so we're almost finished our Deceased Git series. And next, I don't know if I'll tell you I'll tell you on History After Dark what we're doing next year. But we've got Richard of York tonight. That's the final one next week, which we'll announce at the end of tonight's show, and then we'll do a roundup, and then we'll go with the scores and see who is the actual crowned deceased git of 2023. So that should be fun. Now, I don't know if some of you know, but I also have a blog on Substack, Philippa B, because that's my name, philippab.substack.com. So it's Tuesday now because I changed it. I send out a newsletter that has links to the lives we've done. It has information about tours if you're interested in coming on tour with me, and also a little article as well. So I wrote this week about, it started off with, oh my God, I'm reading so many books, it's stupid, which is true. And when I say reading them, I have them all on the go. About 3 in actual, physical form, and about 3 on Audible. And then I added another one on it this morning, actually. So, nightmare. However, I am learning so many different things in these books, and a few of them I just wanted to share with you if that's of interest. Laurie's looking forward to hearing the commentary around Duke of York to determine how much of a git he really is. Yes, we shall see. That's what I mean. I've got 10 hours of research to stick into 10 minutes tonight to try and get over some of the context for his actions in some sort of meaningful way. So we'll see if I can manage it. Every day is a challenge. And there's mine for today. MJ, I think King John and Henry VIII are tied for first place. They are actually tied for first place at the moment. Yes, they are. We might have to have a git off, see who comes out on top. But my Substack this week, my news article, one of the things that I thought might be a sort of little factoid that would be of interest to people is, and I've written about this, so you can go and see it. My newsletter is free, although you can pay for it if you want a bit more. Is that there was we're going on to Dissolution of the Monasteries now, by the way, Henry VIII, because this book, and I know I bang on about it, but goodness me, it's an amazing book. And you would think, do you know what intrigued me? Is I thought, how has someone written a book that thick on the dissolution of the monasteries? Don't we already know what happened? No. And one of the things was the resistance to the closures, and not just the closures. So, like I say, I've written more about it in my Substack. So if you go to philippa.substack.com, you'll be able to see, you'll be able to subscribe for free and read this. But it's the the passive resistance to the closures in things like, and there's actually more examples of this, but this is what I wrote about this week, disposing of the lands and possessions of a house which is going to be closed. That didn't actually only just happen in houses, monastic houses and institutions, I can't say institutions today, that were marked for closure, because as this went on, so the smaller monasteries are closed first, those that have been assessed as having a yearly income of £200 or less. They're closed. They're spread across the country. So there isn't really any part of the country that hasn't been affected or has seen the impact of a closure. Remembering that monasteries are not isolated, but you've got the monks in them, you have people who supplied them, you might have had people who worked for them, and you would have tenants so there were landlords as well. And so the effect of closures was felt. Henry VIII is the biggest dead git ever. Amy has put her final vote in. Love it. The passive resistance, I keep saying this term, to the closures of the monasteries is really then quite incredible in that context, that you think of him as a oh no, mender, a router's dying. Oh no, it's that time to get a new router. Of him being scary, of people not daring to defy him, and except in the examples that we see where someone's come a right cropper because of it. But this was actively sort of getting rid of, so for instance, they would have tenancy agreements that might give land or the right to rent some land for 100 years or something, the day before a house might be earmarked for closure. But with the closures happening across the country, the donors who were a big part of the income, we think of pilgrims going to abbeys, but actually as well, donors, local wealthy families, the nobility, would be donating to monasteries for maybe it to be their family mausoleum, for chantry chapels, for their dead, for themselves. And this income was incredibly important for these houses to remain working. As donors saw houses being closed, it doesn't look like a great investment opportunity anymore, does it? It doesn't look like you're going to get much back, because they might. Don't know what's Henry up to. We don't know. What's the point of giving the money? So donations start to dry up, and so even houses without any indication that they might be closed, they start also getting rid of possessions. Maybe, I don't know, actually, I sort of didn't understand this bit quite so much, but to actually raise money and to make sure that if they are closed, then certain things are out of the hands of the crown, that the crown can't take those possessions into their own, into its own coffers. So anyway, so my Substack is on that this week. And also I have announced the schedule for the Tudors Online History Festival. Excuse me. So the Tudors Online History Festival, we do an online history festival every spring and every autumn. So this is our third online history festival, actually. Last autumn we did the Stuarts. This spring we did the Georgians. This autumn it is the Tudors. We have 7 speakers. We have 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know, something like 5.5, 6 hours. No, it's more than that. Something like that. I don't know, 6 hours worth of talks. So what will happen with the talks, because somebody asked me about this, so I thought I'd mention the schedule because somebody asked me about the timings, and I've set the timings to try and make it so that everyone around the world can join. It's not quite perfectly possible, but the event will open at 8:00 at UK time on the 17th of November. And talks will go live across the weekend from the 17th to the 19th. So first of all, we have Tracy Borman talking about Anne Boleyn and Elizabeth I, that mother-daughter relationship, how it's changed history. And then at 9:30 p.m, Estelle Peronk, her talk on the pursuit of a mother-daughter relationship between Elizabeth I and Catherine de' Medici, the French Queen Mother. And then on Saturday, at 3:00 UK time. So I think 3:00 UK time, Australia. I'm so sorry, Australia. It's just really, really difficult. What I would say is these are the go live times for these talks. So all these talks for ticket holders, and the tickets will be on sale up to and during the weekend, but after that they're not on sale, so you can't get hold of the talks. But if you're a ticket holder, you will be able to get these talks from the moment they go live through to the 31st of January 2024. So you have got loads of time to catch up or watch again any of these talks. And the live events we've put in the evening UK time to try and catch everyone. So it will be very early morning in Australia, midday-ish, late morning, early afternoon in America, and all variants in between. They will be recorded and accessible as well to everyone who's a ticket holder. So anyway, sorry, on the Saturday, Cat, 3 p.m. UK time, is talking about Shakespeare versus the Puritans. So the challenge of of writing plays when you have quite a lot of censorship. 5 p.m. James Clark, the author of this book I keep talking about, The Dissolution of the Monasteries, A New History. He has actually done this 2 hours talk on Henry VIII and the dissolution. And then at 8 p.m, Hilary Lynn is talking about Tudor fashion in the court and how that the power play that comes through with the clothes. And then on Sunday at 2 p.m. UK time, again, Gareth Russell is talking about Barnaby Fitzpatrick, the rise, the fall, and the rise, and possibly the fall again, but that's not in the title, of Barnaby Fitzpatrick. He was the best friend of Edward VI. And his life is fascinating. How come he got in the schoolroom in the first place with Henry VI? How their relationship was so close, and then it sort of faltered. Not the friendship itself, but there was an issue there. And then how he came back, and then what happened to him when Edward VI died, and Mary I came on the throne, and then through to Elizabeth I as well, and his eventual death with a misunderstanding, really. So fascinating. Anyway, Gareth Russell's talking about him. And then our final talk before the live events is Joanne Paul talking about the House of Dudley, just the women. The women were pivotal in the survival of the House of Dudley. And Joanne goes into that in her talk. Caroline, I actually do know Barnaby. I'm presuming he's a Barnaby, actually. I know him as Barney. He's a, yeoman warder at the Tower of London. So, yeah, actually, do you know, I've never asked him his full name. Um, so then now this is really exciting, 6 o'clock UK time, so work that out where you are. We have the live Q&A panel. All 7 of those speakers will be at a live Q&A to answer your questions. If you can't make the live Q&A, then you can submit a question beforehand and I will give you details. Well, let me know and I'll give you details of how to do that. And then for fun, because who doesn't like a bit of fun, we have a closing quiz at 8 o'clock UK time on the Sunday to sort of test your knowledge on the talks, but really it's a bit of fun. It might prompt you to a talk or two that you want to prioritize. And we also will do the free prize draw. So we have 5, I think it is, prizes to give away as well. So there you go. So that's the Tudors Online History Festival weekend, and you can get tickets for that at the Tudors 2023.eventbrite.co.uk, and actually all the information about the event is on there as well. So if you want any of that recapped, go along to the Tudors 2023.eventbrite.co.uk and you can see the schedule and all the details of the talks as well and the live events. I really hope you come. I think it'll be good. It's £20, by the way. So I've priced it to hopefully be as accessible to everyone as many people as possible. So I hope you can join us tonight at 8:15 p.m. history.after.dark on Instagram, History After Dark on YouTube, when we're discussing Richard, Duke of York. Was he a git? Was he not? We will make our deliberations and make our decisions. Right, everyone, I will possibly see you next week. Next week's might be a pre-recorded because I'm out and about again. So I'm going to have even more places to talk to you about. If you want to drop me a line about a topic that you want me to cover, please do. Please feel free. I'm looking for ideas. You can DM me on Instagram. DMing me on Instagram is probably the best. So I'm British_history_tours on Instagram. All right, everyone, I will hopefully see you later or next week. Bye.